Hello and welcome to a special Anime Kiwi episode. We're not talking about Legend of the Galactic Heroes this time. We're going to be talking about the movie Summer Wars. We also don't have AP with us this time, but we still have Random Battle.
Hello.
And also joining us is our friend from literally the other side of the world, Cat Doter.
Good day, mate.
Unless you have something else you want us to refer to you as. I guess I should let you choose that.
No, cat Dota's fine.
Okay.
It's too late now.
So, one thing I realized that made problems you guys expressed with this movie more obvious to me is that this movie is super, super Japanese in, like, everything about it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, like, even just the Oz parts of the movie, the cyberspace or whatever, it's a very Japanese idea of a kind of utopian cyberspace.
And it's a cyberspace where you can do everything in your real life there. Because I don't know if you know, but convenience stores in Japan, like 7-Eleven and all the other stuff they have, you can basically do all that stuff there. You can pay your taxes, pay bills at the convenience store.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. So keeping in mind that everybody might not have a great time with the movie, I was looking for why, and I noticed that that's probably a big reason why. It's very culturally foreign to outside of Japan.
That was not my problem with the movie.
It was also not my problem either.
But
I can explain it further.
I figured it could be an origin, even if it's an underlying reason why some things might not translate as well.
I think it might kind of relate to what I'm thinking about, but I think there's certain narrative structures within anime that just kind of don't. I mean, they're accepted structures, but they don't really work in a narrative sense. I mean, like the Oz parts, the cyberspace parts, they seem like structurally very anime, or what directors in Japan consider to be normal in that type of storytelling. But it doesn't really work. Like, why did there need to be that separate part of the story laid on top of what is kind of an actual, kind of a sweet and very normal family story? I mean, you can strip out all of that stuff, and you have what's left is a story that actually matters, that needs to be told. Because my idea of, like, family structure in Japan isn't very rounded. And I felt in some parts of this movie where it actually works, I had a better understanding of how family and how people relate to each other in a family works in Japan. But there's all this anime bullshit laid on top because, I don't know, maybe the directors thought that it wasn't interesting enough.
The way that I saw the technology part feeding into the family thing was that it's there to reinforce the importance of family as a support system. Because family, like, as a traditional sense of family. Because they couldn't beat Love Machine by themselves. They needed the whole family there to help them out. And two, that none of the, I guess, more modern approaches they took to tackling the problem worked. So they literally went back to things the family did eons ago as a way to do it. So I feel that it's a very traditionally minded thing it was going for. And the director, Mamoru Hosoda, has been, I don't know if criticized is the word, but it's been noted that he's very conservative in his views of this stuff, so that makes a lot of sense to me, the way he's going about it here.
I mean, yeah, I was about to say that it just strikes me as kind of, it's technological, I don't know, sensationalism, because the structure of Oz doesn't really make sense. Like, why would you have controls over city infrastructure in what seems to be kind of like a Second Life type program? It doesn't really make any logical sense, and not to get all tactical realism on you, but it's just, if the story isn't plausible, then it kind of crumbles under its own weight.
It's maybe not plausible in the way you were talking about it, but I feel like if Japan really did make this big overarching social thing, it would absolutely have the ability to do all these things in it, because that's just how Japan works for some reason.
I think that's pretty much every government, though.
Yeah.
Having worked in the government, I can tell you, if somebody from Facebook approached the government and said, "Hey, we can make everything run on Facebook," they'd probably do it.
Especially if it was cheaper.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like any IT professional would immediately say this is incredibly dangerous and that you shouldn't do it, you know?
When has that ever stopped the government from doing a thing?
Yeah. But the second big problem that I have with that kind of separate part of the story, the Oz part of the story, is that these kind of meta realities, I guess you could call it, they don't really have rules or structures that make any sense. Like, one of the big things that I try to argue for in storytelling is that the story should have, like, the audience doesn't need to know the rules of the world, but it should feel like that there are very recognizable structures within that story. The example that I like to make is like Lord of the Rings, for example. You don't know how the magic works, but it feels very lived in, I guess you could say, with that kind of stuff. But with the Oz cyberspace, it makes zero sense, and it kind of feels like they're just making it up as it goes along, and there's nothing to really kind of attach onto or understand in a way that makes it feel like the story's grounded or realistic. And I know that's kind of ridiculous considering how fantastical it gets, but it just needs an anchor point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, kinda. I'm just trying to think of a place where that could be added reasonably, and I'm having trouble coming up with one. It seems like it's a no-win situation on that front.
Well, the problem is the movie is designed around these fantastical action scenes that aren't really in service of anything. Like, if I were to sum up all of my problems with the movie, is that this movie is anime Michael Bay. The plot doesn't really matter. A lot of the things don't really interact in a way that adds to the overall story. And the themes of it are just kind of all over the place.
I don't know. I don't agree with that last part. I think it has a few very specific themes that it hits, and all of the rest of it, for better or worse, is in service of those. Children, stop fucking screaming outside. Can you hear them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear. I mean, I would kind of agree, I guess, that there are some pretty recognizable themes within the story, but I would say that the ones that are important, the ones that are interesting, it doesn't focus on them enough.
Well, the problem I had with it was the themes that it tries to push, it also actively works against in the movie, if you actually sit down and think about it. Like, the more you think about the interactions in the movie, the less the themes that it was going for succeed. Like a Michael Bay movie. The more you look at it, the more it falls apart. Because it's just meant to be just a quick, traditional, by the numbers, go, watch this, and you're done sort of thing. It's not, if you sit and think about it too much, it all falls apart.
I don't know if I would agree with
structurally,
that. But
it's definitely a structure thing. Like, I've watched a lot of Satoshi Kon's stuff recently, and I feel like he's a film director that he just completely rejects the idea that there's a kind of a set of structures within anime and just does whatever story he wants to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that sense from watching this movie, and maybe it's unfair, but like the generic anime protagonist, for example, and his kind of character development and role within the story doesn't really matter.
Oh, I also don't know if I would call him the protagonist per se. He's definitely
the
POV
central character of the
he's
story.
definitely the POV audience insert, but I wouldn't say that there's one single protagonist, really.
But if you consider how much screen time that character takes and how much time it spends lingering on his character development, which there is almost none of, it feels like this movie is just wasted potential. And there's something interesting here, and there's a very, like as I said before, it's kind of a sweet story in spots, and I found myself kind of laughing at some of the jokes and how the family was relating to each other, and I felt that was the core of the movie, but they just didn't focus on it enough. And you've got the odd stuff, and you've got the family banding together, but that's a pretty typical anime thing, you know, the power of friendship or whatever. And yeah, I just felt disappointed and kind of annoyed by the time the movie was over. I mean, when the girl, I forget what her name is, kisses the guy, I also forget his name, and he gets a nosebleed and collapses, and everybody starts laughing, I just got angry.
His nose was bleeding before that, though.
Yeah, but it bleeds more.
He used his new type powers and saved the day through an anime plot device.
His nose was bleeding because of math.
Yeah.
But yeah, considering my exposure to anime is pretty limited, and the stuff that I've actually been watching recently with anime it's a very eye-opening comparison between somebody who understands that anime is a medium and somebody that thinks anime is a genre.
But you've also been, most of the anime you've been exposed to besides this recently has been Satoshi Kon's.
But that's what I mean, though.
That's a different experience. You're not
He just considers... Yeah.
You're not as... what's the word I'm looking for? Something that means used to, but is a single word.
Jaded?
I'm not...
Yeah, sure. You're not
not immersed in the anime culture enough.
Yeah, you don't... You notice that stuff more than somebody who's been watching it for years and years. It's kind of, that's a thing.
I don't think that's true either, because I'm familiar with all these things, and I didn't like it much either, because I could recognize all of the plot elements in the movie that have been done better in other things. Like you have the AI going out of control, and then people having to use their unique skills having to stop it. I've seen that done so many times better in other shows. You have like Macross Plus, where people are like, well, yeah, it's a computer, but it doesn't really think like a person, so we can trick it. Or, you know, Dot Hack, where it's like, oh, these computers operate on set rules, so we can get around them. Not just, oh, well, I can shut it down because even though I couldn't earlier. Like, a lot of the action in the movie isn't in service of anything, because what ends up winning in the end is just a plot device after a plot device and a coincidence after another coincidence. It's like the whole movie, the problems of the movie are all built around coincidences and are solved through identical coincidences. It's not ever, we have to come together and actually use our skills to overcome these things. We don't have to use what we've learned. We just have to take for granted that, you know, the uncle built the AI. And that, oh, you just so happen to be a math wizard. And, oh, you just so happen to punch in the right number at the end. It's like, it doesn't fit the theme of, oh, you have to come together as a family, and you have to work together, and you have to use your skills. Because that didn't mean anything. They used all their skills. Everybody came together, but it didn't mean anything in the end.
I see where you're coming from, but I feel like the themes weren't so much about coming together as when you're up against a wall, your family's got your back, which everything was absolutely in service of that theme, regardless of the coincidences that were present. Because I mean...
That theme is definitely there, but the big problem, for me at least, is, as Random Battle was saying, like, a lot of the other themes in the movie kind of undermine that. And I feel like, you know, the generic anime protagonist in particular, and his role within the story, it kind of, in a lot of places, undermines that idea of family, because he's an interloper within that group, And I guess the idea is that he becomes as an accepted part of the family
Yeah.
at a certain point. But what does he actually do in the story? And how does he actually relate to the characters?
Well, he's
There
the one.
isn't really anything
he's
there.
the one who initially rallied them up to try and stop the thing. Because half of them were too concerned with getting the funeral going and not worrying about everyone else, and the other half was too timid to step up for themselves.
But what if you removed him from the story entirely and then had some of the stuff that he does be like the role of the girl in the story instead? And instead she becomes the central character in the story and the kind of POV of the story. I mean, nothing is really lost. And that's what I mean by certain things undermining the core themes of the story.
It'd probably just be the end of the story would be different.
I'm not really sure it would be, to be honest. Like,
The satellite would probably just crash into the nukes and blow up a big chunk of the thing. I don't know how big that would...
I mean, you could have had any of the other minor characters do the same roles that he did. Like, the only thing he really adds to the story is the anime cliche of we're dating but we're not. Oh, what a twist! Like I forget what the kid's name, but the kid who was the fighter. Like, it could have done the same role as the protagonist kid. Like, it wouldn't have made a huge difference. I mean, in the end, he didn't do much of anything in the story anyway, because all of the things he tried to do just backfired in the end and didn't work until the very final scene where he guesses the magic number. Like, that was it.
I'm pretty sure he's more important as a catalyst to things going on than him serving a specific purpose himself.
Well, exactly, he's a plot device.
There's nothing wrong with a plot device if it's done well, but he maybe wasn't done as well as he could have been.
He's definitely the weakest character in the movie. I mean, I'm not saying that the whole movie was terrible and that or anything. It's just that the really disappointing thing about the movie is that there's something here, and if the movie had gone through more rewrites and they figured out just exactly how this Oz world actually relates to the story and the family and stuff like this better, then there's a story here that could actually be pretty remarkable, and I would have liked it a lot more. But it's just a lot of wasted potential and generic plot devices, and as I said, it's like a filmmaker that thinks that anime is a genre rather than just a medium to tell a story in. So there are certain generic plot devices, and it just undermines the story as a whole.
I can see where you're going with that.
I think if you look at it, like, if you compare it to, like, Legend of the Galactic Heroes, like, they're both very by the numbers. Like, they're influenced by things. You can see the influences. You can see what they're doing.
They're both pretty heavy-handed in their themes.
They're heavy-handed, but I think the difference is Legend of the Galactic Hero is trying to do something with those themes. It's trying to utilize the established conventions in service of the story, rather than making the entire story just those established conventions.
Though, to be fair, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is a shitload more time to expand upon these things than Summer Wars did.
But even just looking at the first movie we watched, just comparing that movie to this movie, they're both by the numbers. You have the basic war space action movie, and you have the basic anime, relationships are important movie. Like, they're both similar, but there's more to Legends of the Galactic Hero because it's not just presenting those ideas and leaving it at that. It's trying to do something more with it. I feel like that.
I think that also probably goes back to the lived-in thing that we were talking about earlier, too. Because Legends of the Galactic Heroes definitely has that, because it does have oodles noodles backstory that we're not seeing.
But you could see that in the movie, even if it wasn't there. Like,
yeah.
the show coming after it is obviously a benefit to the movie, but even if you didn't know that existed, you would still watch that movie and go, oh, there's more going on behind the scenes, and I'd like to see more of these characters. Whereas with Summer Wars, you're not going to think that watching the movie. You're not going to be like, oh, wow, I can't wait to see more of this world. Like, because it's just, if you want to see that, you just watch any anime. Like, it's the same conventions, where it's not trying to build upon anything. And I think that's where I didn't like the movie as much, just because I could just see everything in the movie coming from a different place that I could just watch if I wanted to see it done better or more cohesively or presenting new ideas.
I mean, this movie is definitely not a place to look for new ideas, since it is straight up a remake of the Digimon movie.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think that's maybe the problem with it, is there's nothing bad about the movie. There's like, the voice acting is fine. The animation is good.
Did you watch
the story?
Did you guys watch
fine.
the dub or the original?
I watched the dub, and then I listened to some of the original, and they're both fine.
Yeah,
like, there's for the story they're telling, it's fine. You throw in all the Digimon actors, it doesn't matter. It's fine.
Yeah, I watched the dub as well, and I thought the whoever the girl was, I keep forgetting her name, but whoever they cast to play her was quite good. But everyone else is just sort of regular voice actors, I guess.
Yeah, I watched the dub too, but I've seen both versions a bunch of times, so it didn't really matter too much to me. But yeah, they're both good. I mean, I think
it definitely is quite a beautiful movie.
Can we all agree at least that the animation's very, very well done in the movie?
Absolutely, the animation is great. It's just in service of nothing.
It's fantastic.
Again, it's in my opinion, it's like a Michael Bay movie. Those explosions are fantastic. You can tell so much effort went into the action scenes and whatever. But if it's not in service of anything, that's going to be a detriment to the movie, because you're going to look at the action scenes and go, these are so good. If only there was more to it than this.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the core problem with the movie is a lack of, I guess, to be kind of wanky about it, is a lack of verisimilitude. It doesn't feel like anything, and particularly in the Oz parts of the movie, it doesn't feel like anything. It doesn't have that lived-in quality. It doesn't feel like any of the rules or structures make sense. But I feel like we should get a better idea of why you like the movie, Mikey, rather than just talking about the stuff we didn't like all the time.
For why I like the movie, that's hard for me to place my finger on. I feel like I've kind of, in my trying to defend what I've done thus far, it's a lot of what I like about it. I enjoy the theme work that Hosoda's going on. I like the animation, of course. I just enjoy it in general. I think it's a solid, enjoyable way to spend 90 minutes. I mean, until I watched it this last time, I didn't really think about it too deeply. I just kind of sat there and let it wash over me.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Bad Boys 2 is an amazing experience as well. Like, that's a perfectly reasonable, reason to like a movie.
I mean, I find it entertaining. This is a movie that, if I'm sitting around, I'm like, what'll I do? I have Summer Wars right there. I guess I could put that in. That's always not a bad way to approach that situation for me.
I can get that, actually. I feel like every time I watch a film, I don't sit down thinking, oh, I'm going to think about this in a really deep and critical way or anything like that.
Yeah.
It'll come out naturally.
Yeah, sometimes it just pops out when you're watching a movie.
Like, when I saw Perfect Blue again for the second time, I thought about that movie for like a week straight. It lodged itself in my brain and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. But, some of his other films, like Tokyo Tokyo Godfathers, for example, which I quite liked, but I don't really think anything about it. I just liked it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But on the opposite end of the spectrum, I couldn't help but think about all the stuff that doesn't really work narratively within Summer Wars.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of, the last day or so since I watched it, everything I don't like about anime structure and the reason that I don't really engage with anime that much is kind of present within the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've never thought about it too much. When I was thinking about the themes watching this one, I was going back to its other movies that I've watched. And for the most part, with the exception of the very first Digimon movie, the one that's 20 minutes, a lot of the themes are still present. The strong family themes. A lot of two different worlds coming together in different ways. But
I mean, in
that's
a lot
not,
of ways,
that's not something I
just,
usually think about with this movie.
It's similar themes that you see across a lot of different things, and
Yeah.
I think
But
that at the core is what disappointed me about it. Is just that I've seen these exact same, even storylines, seen through in much more interesting and creative ways in other places. So coming into that with that knowledge of stuff like Macross Plus that touches on almost exactly the same, relationships are important. You have to understand where you've come from in order to defeat an evil AI. Like, it's all by the numbers exactly the same, but it's done better there because it's in service of a larger story, I think.
Yeah, okay.
I think something that could have been really interesting about the film is I feel like there's a theme in the story that isn't really developed very strongly, where the Oz part of the story kind of represents a generational divide between the older people in the family and the younger people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if Oz was literally like a representation of that split between generations, and that it crumbling to pieces could have represented, that there isn't really anything different about different generations, and that they could have come together based on this cyber world crumbling to the ground. There's something interesting there, I think. But, rather than talk about what I would have done if I was writing the story, that doesn't really serve anything, I guess, me saying what I would have done. But it's just, that's my core criticism with the movie, I guess, that there's something interesting here that's just wasted.
Well, I think that comes back to other stories like Dot Hack and stuff, where you have these,
Dot
dual
Hack, there's a lot of waste potential in Dot Hack.
Dual, realities of people trying to come to terms with, what's the true them and all that sort of stuff. But for Summer Wars, there's a lot of, teasing at more intricated stories and stuff like that. There's a part in the movie where they start talking about Love Machine and how it's, designed to think for itself and it's establishing its own behaviors or anything, but that's not really, that doesn't go anywhere in the story. They don't use that information to anything. It's not in service of anything. It's just a piece of information that's just thrown out there. When I saw that, they were like, oh, okay, I bet they're going to start thinking about the relationships of whatever Spike Spiegel, whatever his name was, and him as a child, because that's probably what he based the AI on.
That was Spike Spiegel. That was Steve Blum, wasn't it?
I don't know if it was Steve Blum. It could have been. That guy's got a huge range, but he looked like Spike Spiegel anyway.
Okay.
So it's when I was watching it, my mind was going to all these other places that I was like, oh man, that'd be interesting if they did that, and then they don't. So I was like, oh, well, okay. I guess I'm not going to see that.
Okay, that was not Steve Blum, unfortunately. I don't know who this was.
Could have been.
Could have been.
If you had told me it was Steve Blum, I would have believed you.
Well, I would say that about just about any person in an anime.
It's true.
Well, at least
you could have told me the dog's voice actor was Steve Blum, and I would have believed you.
It wouldn't be the first time.
It would not. No.
I really hate Steve Blum's like A voice. You know that gravelly, growly, manly voice that he does in almost anything.
You mean his
No,
his Spike Spiegel Char voice?
I think it's fine, but it's not something that needs to be in everything.
Well, it's just like Nolan North's Nathan Drake voice. It was good once, and then everybody only wanted that voice instead of one of the other dozens he can do.
Which is it's always disappointing in those situations because like Nolan North, but like Steve Bloom, all these guys, fantastic range, but they're always just like do Spike Spiegel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's disappointing to me.
Yeah, I was absolutely shocked when I found out that Nolan North was that cannibal guy in The Last of Us.
Yeah,
I had no idea.
Yeah, I played that with my girlfriend watching it like a movie. I'm like, the Campbell guy, that's Nathan Drake, and she literally did not believe me.
Yeah, I didn't know Nolan North was the Penguin in the Batman games either.
Yep. Troy Baker was the Joker in the... Oh, no. He's the Joker in something. Right?
He was the Joker in one of the movies.
Okay. I knew he was the Joker
he was also
somewhere.
He's the Joker in the non-Rocksteady Batman game.
Oh, was he also in the Origins or whatever?
Okay.
Yeah, Origins.
Because he's pretty good at the Joker.
He's a pretty good Mark Hamill impersonation.
Yeah. It's a little different, but...
It's
It's
close,
more or less,
though.
yeah. It's a little bit more fucked up personality-wise, I think. But you can't really top Mark Hamill's. You can only do different.
I mean, if we're talking about dubs more generally, the girl in Summer Wars is she like a well-known voice actor? Because I didn't get the sense that she didn't really sound like a voice actor to me. She sounded like when she's crying about the great grandmother being dead, for example. Like I kind of believed that she was upset, and I don't typically get that from anime actors.
Well known. I don't recognize her name, but she looks like she's been the main character in a lot of stuff.
Well, whoever she is, she's doing good work.
She's. I guess she's Rey in the English dub of Evangelion.
She's known for being Mad Moxie in Borderlands. And she is the lead vocals in Connect Star Wars for one song.
Oh, look at that.
That's a weirdly specific thing.
The English voice actor for Chaozu and Puar in
And Tony
Dragon Ball stuff.
And Tony Chopper in One Piece.
I have no idea who these people are.
You should probably watch Dragon Ball.
I don't know, I'm
good
not
things
12.
about it. We're all 12 deep down inside.
I watched a bunch of Dragon Ball Z growing up, and I guess my other exposure to anime outside of stuff like Satoshi Kon's stuff is like your Beyblades and your Yu-Gi-Ohs and your Pokemons and stuff like that.
If you want like real good, like actual good peak Dragon Ball, you should read the comics. They're very well composed comics. He knows how to lay out a page.
Are you trying to imply there's nothing good about Yu-Gi-Oh? He stabs a dude in the early episodes.
The Yu-Gi-Oh comics are okay too.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Well, I wasn't saying they're bad. It's just that, like, it's weird that I haven't seen that much anime, but I recognize these really obvious structures within different stuff that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, in particular, the, people narrating over somebody doing something that's considered skillful is something that I've seen a ton. Like, they'll have somebody on the sidelines saying what everything Ash is doing while he's controlling his Pokemon.
That's not really an anime thing as so much as it is a Japanese television thing. That's just how Japanese media is.
It strikes me as very strange. Like, I don't understand why they do that.
I don't completely do it either.
Narrative conventions have a reason behind them, but this just doesn't really make sense.
But I watch so much Japanese TV that I'm just kind of used to it now. It's just a thing that I've accepted happens.
Is it a lack of confidence in the audience?
I
I think it probably comes back to like after war assimilation of American culture. You have things like radio programs,
kinda, yeah,
going and influencing stuff like that.
And on Japanese TV how they have a little box that the reactions of the people in the studio have.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That's called. I don't know why it's called this, but it's called the wipe. And they did that once in a show in I think the 60s or 70s, and it was so I guess it's so popular amongst the audiences at home that they've basically put in everything. It's Japan's very, very much if this works once, put it in everything forever until it stops working completely.
That's why you have so many of the themes from the movie. Even if you are not familiar with anime, you probably
that's why
seen them.
That's why there are anime cliches. That's why the last 8 years of anime has been 90% moe garbage.
Like young girls in school uniforms, and that's like 90% of the anime that I see out there now.
Yep. Because if it works,
people
sells...
buy it. People buy their $200 box sets, and the anime company's like, "Yeah, this makes money. We're gonna make this and only this, and maybe something else once in a while."
Until it stops working.
There's been a Japanese horror director I like that we talked about a lot in Horror Kiwi, who's done mainly like no budget stuff. Has said that if he ever makes it big, he's absolutely going to go to Hollywood as opposed to staying in Japan, because Japan's film industry is not known for innovation. He wants to do new things.
Well, I mean, you see the same thing in just about any like entertainment, industry. American films.
Yeah, but
the horror genre in particular, you've seen the rise of the handheld camera videos and stuff like that.
There's more room to do stuff with it over here, I guess is what you're saying, than in Japan, where it's basically you do this.
Well, I think the difference is here the trends come and go a lot quicker than in Japan, because those trends have always been there in Japan, and they've not always been the same. Like back in the 80s, you had the giant robot boom of Macross, Gundam, Voltron, all of those things. Just for every hit Gundam show, you had 100,000 2-episode crappy cash-ins trying to do the same thing that all the moe anime is doing now. Like there's a handful of successful ones, and then a tremendous amount of ones that don't go anywhere because they don't capture the audience. They're just trying to cash in.
Yeah. It also helps that the fan base for horror stuff over here is pretty open to things being done new, since it's more or less a niche market.
It's interesting because you see a lot of that stuff in the game industry as well, where Japanese game designers are really honing in on what they think is Western style design, because they think there's like a lack of innovation in the game industry in Japan.
And then you get cool things like Dragon's Dogma.
Yeah, exactly. And
Souls,
like Demon Souls and Dark Souls are a product of that as well. And I mean, like the designer for Xenoblade Chronicles X is talking about how he basically plays no Japanese games anymore because he just doesn't see any innovation in that area.
Yeah. For all its faults, Xenoblade Chronicles X is unique amongst its peers.
You can definitely see there's a huge amount of Japanese influence in the game itself, but
yeah, there's a lot of
design-wise, design-wise, I don't really see any commonalities between Japanese games and that game.
I like that game a lot. It has its problems, but if Yakuza didn't come out 2 days after I had bought Xenoblade Chronicles X, I would have played a lot more of it.
Yeah, I play it on some sort of live stream or series.
I did play Chronicles X on a live stream a couple times.
I think I would have played that game more if it wasn't like 90 hours long or something.
Yeah, I still haven't got my Mac.
If I had a Wii U, I'd play that a whole bunch.
It's a good game. You should get a Wii U and refurbished ones come back up, and also you have the money for it.
When they're like $50, I will totally pick up a Wii U.
I don't know if they'll drop that low, but
I'm waiting for that. Oh, come on, they're totally gonna be that cheap. As soon as the NX gets announced, they're gonna plummet.
Yeah, the same thing happened with the Wii. I bought mine for $90 or something, which is pennies in American money.
Yep.
Well,
But
the Wii did get really cheap, didn't it?
Yeah, it did get super cheap. But I think the Wii U is actually probably the most interesting console at the moment.
I like my Wii U a lot. Splatoon's a great game. Splatoon is, if you're not counting games that didn't come out in 2015, like Yakuza, Splatoon's easily my game of the year for last year.
He's got style.
It's fresh.
It's fly as hell.
It's also really fun. And the motion controls work surprisingly well. I can't play it without the motion controls at this point, basically.
But yeah, if you look at stuff like Splatoon and Xenoblade Chronicles X and, all the Nintendo stuff, the stuff you get on the Wii U isn't really like anything else. And I think that's why it's probably the most compelling console at the moment. Like, if you get a PS4 or an Xbox One, you're just getting, like, a shitty PC, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's again...
It's convenient.
Going back to Summer Wars, it's all about new ideas and new ways of looking at old ideas. Mm-hmm. That's always what makes anything successful, is that it incorporates the familiar elements of something that you've seen before and takes it in an interesting new direction. Like Splatoon, it's a first-person shooter, or a third-person shooter. It's just a team-based multiplayer shooter. Seen them all hundreds of times before. But it does something interesting that changes it up. That makes it interesting.
So basically,
the Wii U is kind of like the Summer Wars of the Summer Wars of consoles, where it's wasted potential.
Mm-hmm.
Like that gamepad doesn't really do anything in most of the games.
But you could see it from a distance and think, man, I bet this could be doing some interesting things if only a little bit more was put into it.
Yeah, it's just...
The ones it does do stuff in are nice, though. Which are all Nintendo games.
Yep.
It's basically Nintendo probably didn't have enough support.
What about Mario Kart 8, where it's basically just a massive horn button?
Oh, my solution for that is to not play Mario Kart 8, because Mario Kart games aren't fun.
I kind of like Mario Kart 8.
I do not like any Mario Kart game. Maybe Double Dash. I don't remember that one well enough. But
I played Mario Kart 8 for like 2 days and then never played it again, but I had fun with it.
I don't like kart racers for the most part, besides the Sonic one. That there's never going to be another one. Or at least never another good one. Because the company...
another good one.
The company that made that now does kart racing stuff for Disney Infinity.
You never know. They could do it again.
Maybe.
Never say never.
I don't got my hopes up, especially when it comes to Sega.
This will be the year they turn it all around.
They're releasing M2's retro stuff on the 3DS.
Well, that's something.
Just like every year, there's a new Sonic game. This will be the one that turns it all around.
Nobody says that.
Everybody says that. Don't be crazy. That is the thing that everyone says all the time.
No sane person says that.
This will be the one.
Sonic Boom, this will be the one.
Sonic Lost World.
This will be the one. I think you'll find people say that about every Sonic game.
Remember when Sonic 4 was going to be the one?
Oh, it's Return to Classic. It's going to be the one.
Remember when
garbage that game is.
Remember when nobody said anything about Sonic Colors and then that one turned out being decent?
They're going to reboot it. It's just going to be called Sonic the Hedgehog. It's going to be great. Just you wait and see. 2008, the year Sonic's going to come back.
I love Sonic 06. Not because it's good.
It is
Sonic
definitely...
06 is a very interesting game.
It's definitely
special.
Remarkable.
It's special.
Remarkable and special. Generations is pretty good.
Generations is okay.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Especially once you put the Unleashed mod on there. The non-werewolf parts of Unleashed are pretty good.
You think we should talk about the movie more instead of Sonic? We kind of got sidetracked.
I think that says a lot about Summer Wars in that now we'd rather talk about Sonic 06 than Summer Wars.
Well, I've exhausted everything I have to say about it.
Well, I was coming into this with the hope that Mikey would have this really well-reasoned and good argument about why he likes it, but...
See, I knew better than that. I knew that wasn't going to happen.
Oh well. Mikey is the Summer Wars of podcasters. Wasted potential.
Just
but
sit
not
down.
Bad wasted. Not bad wasted potential. Just
it's good.
Average.
It's pretty good.
Just sit down and listen to me. Don't think about it too much.
Yeah. Don't analyze anything anybody says too much, or it'll all fall apart.
I mean, I don't hate Mikey. He's pretty good, but there's wasted potential.
He could be better.
I just need refinement, and unlike Summer Wars, I can do that.
But you can see a better version of Summer Wars. It's called Macross Plus.
Or Digimon Our War Game.
Or Digimon the Movie.
That is that.
Hey Digimon, hey Digimon. They're the champions of the digital world.
I really hope my short podcasting career doesn't end with me watching the Digimon movie.
That's never going to happen on
I'm trying to make it happen.
It's not
I would rather die.
Comments about how much you want everyone to watch Digimon the Movie. I need support. Not even AP will support me on this decision.
I won't support it for different reasons.
And why is that?
That's because I actually like that movie, and I don't want to talk to people about it.
But it's so good. It's like this insane, nonsensical...
The first half is very good.
Fever dream.
I love the first half of that movie.
You actually have my attention now. Fever Dream, go on.
Oh yeah,
it's
okay.
3 different movies chopped together to make one movie.
So the first 2 movies chopped together is kind of coherent. That was the original plan for that movie. But then Saban came in and was like, no, this isn't long enough. Put this 3rd movie on there. And they resisted, saying, no, that doesn't make any sense. It's going to be garbage. And then he won over, and it was garbage. And the 3rd part of that movie is nigh unwatchable.
There's like the final fight scene is taking place in 2 different time periods because the movies are set in 2 different time periods. But yet...
Wait, why?
It's mind-boggling. It's like they made the big bad guy of the movie the same across these 3 different movies. It was never intended to be the same thing.
And this overarching plot line was shoehorned in at literally the last minute. It was like a month or 2 before the film was going out.
It's amazing, and all to like the worst best of 90s pop music. It's so good.
And it's really sad because a lot of the good songs on that soundtrack are in that god-awful 3rd part. It's very sad.
Is this like a Pokemon movie sort of situation?
Well, yeah.
The Pokemon movies never did this. Those always came out because those were all feature length.
Those were just the movies. These were, we need to make a Digimon movie because Digimon needs a movie. But we don't have a movie's worth of content. So let's just take 3 movies that were like TV specials and stick them all together.
The first 2 were theatrical.
Were they?
I think the first one, the 20-minute one, was pinned on to the second one as like a pre-roll thing. Because the second one was definitely a theatrical release.
Either way, it's like taking Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 7 and sticking them all together to make one movie. That has
it's like
through line, sort of. It's amazing in that it makes no sense. And it's great. It's a non-Euclidean movie.
I legitimately enjoy the first 2/3 of that movie.
I like that movie. It's pretty good.
Has some good dad jokes in it.
And you know what? It has the exact same themes and stories as this movie, and it's done better.
It's literally the same person who made it.
Well, that makes sense.
Refinement. It's the refinement of this movie, only with Digimon.
Except backwards.
You know, if you told me ahead of time that this movie was made by the same director as the Digimon movie, I probably would have bounced.
Yeah, well, that's why also Mikey said, don't worry, this isn't an anime school anime. Don't worry about it, guys.
That barely played into it, and you know it.
That was the entire point of the movie.
I asked if it was anime good. I asked if it was anime good rather than good, you know? And Mikey told me it was good, not anime good.
I think it's good.
What? I'm saying good way too much. But
I think that Macross Plus is better because it was the same movie but better and had giant robots in it.
Could have been improved by giant robots.
My final statement on this movie is that it's definitely anime good, but it's not good.
I can live with that.
So if that's your thing, then watch the movie. But if you come in here thinking there's going to be an interesting story and some interesting themes, you're probably going to leave pretty disappointed.
My recommendation is watch Digimon the Movie. It won't leave you indifferent.
But stop after the part that's Summer Wars.
Nope. Just go all the way through.
Don't do that.
Like
that's a bad idea.
It's like a gunshot. You have to go all the way through.
No, that's a bad idea.
Well, my recommendation is to watch everything by Satoshi Kon and then say all anime is garbage and then never watch anime again.
We'll talk about that next month sometime, Cat Doter.
We definitely will.
That'll be fun. We need to figure out a time for that since you're... What time is it there now? It's like...
11:42 a.m.
Okay. Yes, we'll have to figure that out. Since there's going to be two of us on West Coast, but one of us actually will have a job. So, that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting.
I'm working on it too.
I do stuff from home, so.
Hey, if you know anybody that needs a sound engineer, let me know.
Anyways, I guess that's about it for this. Unless you guys have anything else you got to say.
I summed up my points about the movie. I could go into more detail, but I don't think you want me to.
No, not really.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts are that it's anime good. There's some stuff here that's interesting that they don't focus on enough, but it's not bad. It's okay.
It's fine.
Yeah. I like it enough to watch it a couple times a year.
That's maybe way too much, but whatever. It's fine. You could do worse. You could do way better, but you could do worse.
I don't think I've ever watched a movie that much, except for The Land Before Time when I was like 4 years old.
I watched that a lot when I was young too. It's mainly that I'll be sitting around and I'll look at that and be like, sure. And I'll put it on while I do something else.
I've seen Mad Max Fury Road 3 times since this came out.
I saw it once.
It's a pretty good movie.
That was enough for me.
I recommend watching Mad Max Fury Road instead of Summer Wars. It's basically the same movies, the same elements of the story. You get the same idea.
Is it?
Except executed. It kind of is, actually.
Relationships, friendship, working together. Boom, same movie.
You could say that about
Except
a lot
bunch
of things,
people die.
And I will.
I actually kind of agree, and not in a flippant way. There is some similar theming there, but, you know, there's a massive gulf in quality of execution between the two films, obviously.
Now, Mad Max didn't do as much for me as I was expecting it to.
You got built up by the hype, probably.
Yep.
If only there were some schoolgirls in it.
Like, I would go back and probably watch Dread again instead of Mad Max. I like that more as an action movie.
Here's my anime Summer Wars recommendation is to watch Mad Max Fury Road again. There, that's my final word on Summer Wars.
I'm not gonna do
Watch Mad Max Fury Road. It holds up super well on rewatches, like, to kind of a crazy degree.
that. I didn't enjoy it enough to do that.
Gotta
Okay, what
forget about
about
the hype.
Macross Plus. It's like Summer Wars if the bad guy was Hatsune Miku. Boom.
So it's like real life.
It's like real life. Hatsune Miku will take over a giant alien space fortress, and it will be up to 2 test pilots to stop her. It's fact.
Why does everything go back to Hatsune Miku with you?
I mean,
I don't know.
the thematic elements here just led me right to it.
It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but with Hatsune Miku.
I mean, it actually makes sense this time.
It's like a living
It
hell.
makes sense this time. Sharon Apple is basically the same thing. We should watch Macross Plus.
Is it worth watching the other Macross stuff first?
No, it's kind of standalone.
Because I've only seen little bits of the original.
You could totally just watch Macross Plus. It's self-contained. It's a character piece about 3 people.
Is it anime good or good? And don't lie to me.
It's good.
Well, I don't know. I've been lied to in the past.
It's like Top Gun plus giant robots.
Plus J-pop.
Not really. It's not really J-pop.
Is it super homoerotic in the way that Top Gun is?
No.
No.
Then I'm not going to watch. No point.
If you want homoerotic, you should watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes and tune into the regular Anime Kiwi podcast.
That was pretty elegant.
And pointing it out only makes it more elegant.
Yeah.
I saw my opening, I had to go for it.
It's well done. Good boy.
Anyways, that's probably it. If any of you, the listener, have comments on Summer Wars or the discussion here, leave comment in the YouTube version or on our Tumblr at thegamekiwi.tumblr.com or on Twitter or at thegamekiwi. Like, subscribe, all our stuff. And next week we will hopefully be back with episodes 5 through 8 of Legends of the Galactic Hero, assuming that AP's toes are still attached to his feet.
We can only hope.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it for this week's special Anime Kiwi. I will be back with Cat Doder next month to talk about Satoshi Kon, actually, so go watch all of his stuff, actually. All of his movies and Paranoia Agent.
Oh, just go watch everything he's ever done. That'll only take you a couple weeks.
No, it's 4 movies, Paranoia Agent, and then a minute-long short.
Yeah, but you're not gonna fucking hardball them right next to each other. Space that out.
I beg to differ. I watched all 4 of these movies on the same day.
That's an experience.
We're not going to talk about it till probably late February, so you got time.
Well, I will say one thing in advance, in that all of these movies are great, and you should watch them before the podcast thing.
Yes. Yes, you should. At the current plan, I don't usually like to announce things too far ahead of time, but it seems pretty certain this time. The current plan is that we will have Mary Kish joining us to talk about Satoshi Kon, and she likes her some Satoshi Kon. So it'll be a good time. So watch as much of it as you can. If you have to skip something, skip Paranoia Agent, because that probably won't get mentioned, or it'll get mentioned but won't be discussed overtly, probably, because we've already talked about that.
I've only seen the first 5 episodes of Paranoia Agent, and with the exception of the 5th episode, all of it has actually been really good so far, and I would highly recommend it.
Episode 7's magnificent.
I recommend just going to YouTube and typing in anime and then just watching everything that comes up.
That works too.
That sounds like a way you would go insane.
Anyway, Satoshi Kon, that's Paranoia Agent, Perfect Blue, Paprika, Tokyo Godfathers, and Millennium Actress. Watch those. We'll be back with that end of February probably. I'm not going to give a firm date because we still have to work it out, but it's coming. Next week is 5 through 8 of Legend of Galactic Heroes. And yeah, go do all that social media stuff I said before. Any good comments or questions or whatever, I'll read out in the next episode.
You'd read out the bad ones too, don't lie.
Any comments
Should read out only the bad ones.
Any comments that tickle my fancy, I'll read out. Anyways, that's it. I'm Mike.
You got a text message.
Yeah, I did.
That's Mike's phone.
That's my phone.
I'm Random Battle.
I'm Cat Dodo.
Thanks for listening, and as always, keep it anime.